Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. Today I'd like to share with you an updated variation of Dave Warren's Tuya knife NV-V4. Now, if you had watched my previous video on the NV-V4, you would have seen this particular knife right here, which as you could tell, I carry and I use quite often. I really have enjoyed this knife a lot. It was one of the bigger surprises this year, especially in a somewhat budget-oriented field at the $239 price point for the first variations of this. And now I see a competitor for that, another one that I'm absolutely, completely, madly in love with. And this is what he's calling the premium version. Now, the differences between the standard and the premium versions are as follows. You get a much more expensive inlay material. He's going from the aluminum infused carbon fiber, which is jaw-dropping already. It's a really, really great looking material. And it's got this beautiful shine to it in all the areas where the aluminum is. However, we all love fat carbon, and purple is such an amazing color for it. And it is a much more expensive material choice. So that's the first change in the upgrades. The next change is going from the small button head T6 screws to a countersunk T8 screw set down inside of the frame. I really like how that was done. Very, very nicely done. And I do believe, yes, and the new blade finish. So on this one, you've got the hand rub satin flats and the really nice belt satin bevels on a gorgeous Wharncliffe shape. Dave did such a great job coming up with this design. For those that don't know Dave, Dave is the U.S. representative and customer service and warranty service for Tuya Knife. And that's one of the things that I really love about Tuya Knife is, there are a lot of brands that come out of China. And one of the fears you have as a consumer is, well, if something's wrong with my knife or it develops a problem over time, what do I do? Am I just screwed? I've paid all this money for a knife that will end up having issues and never be right. Well, with Tuya, having U.S. sales and service available to you, you know that all you need to do is email Dave Warren and you're taken care of. And that is a major leg up for the brand. And one of the many reasons that I chose them when I decided to make my Caledon. And I have to give a lot of credit to Dave. Dave is such an amazing individual. He's just the nicest guy in the world. So personable. If you go over to his Facebook group for Tuya Knife, everybody loves him. Nobody would have a negative thing to say about him. And he got me turned on to Tuya a couple of years ago. I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, about 3 years ago with the Kingsman and the Hive 2. And I saw them and I played with them and I reviewed them and I went, I'm amazed at what these people are able to do for such a modest price point. Modest being under $400 or $500. I think these were around 200 in the low 200s, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a few years and my memory is absolute garbage. So forgive me if I'm incorrect. But this quickly became a knife that I fell in love with and carried often. And it was really the only Chinese OEM that I had seen that had the balls to do a hand rub satin blade outside of Riyadh. Riot did it. Riot perfected it. And David over at Riot was trained by Todd Begg, taught how to do a proper hand rub satin. And they really are the masters when it comes to production knives. However, Tuya knocked it out of the ballpark. They did such a gorgeous job. And the action was amazing. The detent, the smoothness, the jimping that was on it. Everything was just so perfect. I went, man, these things are just fantastic. So when I was discussing one day with Dave that I had a whole bunch of projects shotgunned out to a number of different manufacturers, he's like, let me hook you up with Kevin, the owner of Tuya Knife. Let me hook you up with him and you guys discuss your projects and see if maybe they'd be interested in working with you as a designer or as a partner, a collaborator, whatever, or as an OEM, and see if something there can work out. So thanks to him, I got hooked up with them and I was able to release my knife. And I brought this one out really only because it also has purple carbon fiber. It's made by the same factory. And I think they did such an amazing job. And I've been so incredibly happy with the work that they did. And I owe 100% of it to Dave Warren. And I can't possibly repay him for his generosity and sharing his contact with me and everything else. Because I'll be honest with you, there'll be a lot of people, if you decide that you ever want to make knives, production knives, that you'll encounter that won't tell you what factory they're using, because any factory these days that are actually doing a really good job and that are delivering product fairly quickly is a rare thing. So the problem is nobody wants to share that information because they don't want too many clients clogging up the supply line with the factory. So, and Dave just being so upfront, going, yeah, here's it's Tuya Knife. Here's the contact. Here's his email and everything else, and see what you can do. And it's changed my life this year. That's for damn sure. So again, going back to the fact that Dave is just one hell of a great human being, and he stands behind all of the Tuya products that he sells. You just go to TuyaKnifeUS.com. And you can see all the different Tuyas that are available through the website. If for some reason my memory just screwed up and I said it incorrectly, it'll be here on the screen. What's on the screen is correct. It should be TuyaKnifeUS.com. Anyway, so has anything changed that I don't like? No. I gave the original NVV4 a glowing review because it was just so surprisingly good for the money. And I only put the for the money caveat in there, not to say because it should only be categorized in that lower price point. What I'm saying is it's so good, and on top of that, they're offering it for such a reasonable price that it's insane. Now, if you get the premium version, this one here, it's $269, so it only went up $30. So $239, $269 with all of the upgrades. That's stupidly, crazily low priced. And again, it's another testament to how cool Dave is. Dave could have very easily charged a lot more money for this new premium version because it did cost him more money. But whatever the cost differential was, he just passed it right along on to the customers. He didn't profit heavily off of it. He just went, hey, it's only a few bucks more. I'm only going to charge a few bucks more. Here you go. And I can tell you right now, these are going to sell out very, very quickly. Now, I've had mine now for about 2 weeks, so I'm sorry for being late to the game on this one. I do believe I was the first to review the original V4, but I've been sitting on this and waiting for the right time to bring it out, and I just happened to notice that they still had a few of the purple in stock, so I'm like, hell, I really need to get that video out and let people really see just how gorgeous it is. Now, let's get into the specs very quickly. I have Talked and talked and talked here for about 10 minutes, so I'm going to forego the TLDW. If it was already too long and you already didn't watch, so it doesn't really matter to do that section. But here, very quickly, I do have to measure the overall length because that's not available information. It is, man, it's 7 3/4 inches overall, just under 8 inches overall. You've got a 3.5 inch blade in S90V. That's a very, very, very important thing to remember, that these are not M390. These are S90V at 133 thousandths of an inch thick. All titanium, everything. The lanyard, backspacer, everything. The pocket clip, all the hardware, everything is done in titanium. And the weight is only 3.8 ounces. It's a really nice EDC size and a really nice EDC weight. Another thing that I love, the ergonomics on this knife. Dave very clearly has handled a lot of knives and wanted to make something that would just melt in your hand. It's not overdone on the finger reliefs. It's just perfect. It doesn't force you into only one position. You can still move the knife around in your hand if you want. Or as if it was something a bit more extreme on the finger relief, you might kind of feel cramped into the knife. Not so the case with this. He did a fantastic job. Tuya executed everything very, very well. Really good jimping. The thumb studs are very comfortable. And that's something that a lot of people that get into thumb stud openers will complain about, is if the thumb stud has any really sharp edges, and maybe it comes to a point instead of being rounded off on the ends. There are a lot of different things you can do to screw up a thumb stud and make it uncomfortable to open. Speaking of comfort, there is a nice cutaway on the presentation side that allows you very easy access to the lock bar. This is a titanium frame lock. You do have an over travel stop, and there is a steel lock bar insert. And by the way, you've been watching me flip this over and over and over again, but if you want, you can slow roll it. You could treat it like it's a Sebenza. The detent will allow for that. Now, if you're pushing up on it, it's going to want to pop away from your finger. But if you're going straight out and you're not putting pressure on the lock bar, you can very easily do a slow roll. And that's not always the case on thumb stud openers because the detents are so often set just for flicking that it makes it too difficult to slow roll. All right, let's give you some quick size comparisons here against other 3.5-inch bladed knives. I'm going to bring out the Jaeger M. That is the Brian Brown Knives Jaeger M made by Riot. The Jaeger M is substantially heavier. It is a thicker knife. Then we have another Riot made product. This is the VBR, Varga Knives VBR. Why is everything off to the left? I all of a sudden can't center things. I don't know why. I apologize. There we go. Put everything ass to ass, as everything in the world should be. And you'll notice that in its height, it's sleeker than both. It is overall a more compact knife in every dimension, even though it is the exact same blade length. If I put these all pivot to pivot, you'll see they're all 3.5-inch blades. And I'm using some of my favorite knives to do that comparison because this is really that good. And probably my absolute favorite in the 3.5-inch range these days is the James brand Barnes. And the Barnes is almost identical in its size. It too is a very compact knife for the 3.5-inch blade. Not that a 3.5-inch blade is monstrous or huge, but a lot of times you're going to end up with an 8-inch overall knife on a 3.5-inch blade. And these two designs kept it very, very compact. So, and there's a monstrous price difference between these. I mean, just huge. You could just about buy two of these for the price of one of these. And it is so well made, feels so good in the hand. And as I mentioned, I have used my original V4 a lot for cutting and various different things, and it is just slicey and awesome. Now, this is the fourth generation of this knife, very obviously by the name V4. And while I wasn't crazy about the designs of 1 and 2, they really weren't my cup of tea. I knew they would be good knives, but they just weren't the design-wise, they were not particularly my flavor. And then the V3 came out. I'm like, oh, here we go. Now with the V4, I got to tell you, man, when he switched from the other blade shapes to the sheep's foot, I was so impressed. It's one of my absolute favorite blade shapes. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing a different variant of the Caledon after we do the second run of these. I'm going to be doing a sheep's foot on this particular design as well. What's going to be tricky, however, is not making it look like Dave's design, because I don't want to take away from what he's done. And this is such an incredible design on its own the way it is. I love sheep's foot blades. I love Wharncliffe blades. I love how they look, and I love how they perform. I like having the tip below the pivot because it's going to be really, really great for draw cutting. It's going to be great for opening up boxes and things like that. The things that I would do more often than anything else. And you've got just enough belly on that blade where you can do some rocking style cuts. Let's say you were cutting down some paracord and you wanted to get that precise cut, and then you want to kind of just do a quick rock cut. If you were doing food prep or something like that, where that would be beneficial for you. Not Wharncliffe's, but sheep's foot blades are fantastic for that. So overall, this is absolutely one of the top knives of the year for me personally. I think that everything, the way that it was done, was just fantastic. The inlay looks good and feels good. The only problem with the inlay, and this is a thing with both fat carbon and camo carbon, is, and I don't really know why, but there are sometimes white specks that will come through when the material is being finished. I don't know what causes this. I don't know what other material is in there besides the carbon fiber. And I don't know what they use to create the purple, to be perfectly honest with you. They've never shared their secret as to what their composite is. But anyway, the little white specks, if you were super anal, that might really bother the shit out of you. It doesn't really bother me all that much. But I do love the look of the purple against the black. I've always thought purple is a fantastic color choice. And having purple infused into the carbon fiber is a really, really great look. I also love the fact that he's chosen to do an inlay on the lock side, because that's something that you just don't see often enough. There are some really great looking frame locks out there. And you're like, man, that's a good looking knife. And then you flip it over and it's just all plain Jane. Again, while that doesn't really bother me all that much, it is a recognizable upgrade when somebody does do a nice inlay on the lock side. Overall, the shape of the handle is so nice. The ergonomics of it are so fantastic. The lanyard loop back here in the titanium backspacer helps to fill out the hand just a little bit more without really adding any more size to the frame. And certainly by not adding much weight to it at all. Because if the whole butt of the frame were coming around that high, you'd have a couple of thick pieces of titanium there instead of a slimmer piece that also has a pocket machined out, or a window machined out of it, skeletonizing it, making it further lightweight. Pocket clip is perfect, by the way. I don't think that I mentioned that at all. It carries phenomenally well. It doesn't catch in the lock bar relief cut. It doesn't force your pants pocket into there either. It doesn't have too much tension. It's not light tension. It's just perfect. Tuya's execution on so many things, all those little details like that, They're just fantastic. So I would highly suggest, whether it is an NVV4 or any of the other great designs on Tuya's website, go check them out and get a Tuya in your collection. There's a reason why both Dave and I have chosen them as partners to make our designs, because they really are good knives. They may offer a budget price, but they don't cut any corners like you would see in a typical budget knife. You'll be proud to own it. You'll be proud to show it off. It'll work well for utility, whatever it is that you need to actually do with it. It'll carry well, and the actions are addictive. They feel fan-friggin-tastic. Nice and smooth and fast. And it's not a guillotine where it just drops down as soon as you unlock it. It's got a very smooth, very nice, controllable action. All the way around, Dave knocked it out of the park. So did Tuya. Congratulations to both of them. And to all of you that already have yours, sound off down below in the comments. I want to hear what you've got to say about them as well. That's it for me today, guys. I'm out of here, and I'll see you on the next video.